Oh, yeah, it's the State of Combat podcast on CBS Sports. Your boy, the Brian Campbell, and the Silver King, Adam Silverstein. And these boots were made for stomping this week in the WWE with the inaugural Stomping Grounds pay-per-view invading the state of Washington this Sunday on the WWE Network. And Silver King, we are here to get people fired up for it. And I think the term fired up is interesting because entering this week of WWE programming wasn't too fired up, but for a go-home week, they may have gotten me.
Yeah, these were combined maybe the 5 best weeks of WWE television and 5 best hours of WWE television, and I don't know how long, months maybe. So we went from being completely cooled down, me almost having to pull teeth to get you to even do this show, to now somewhat excited to see what happens on Sunday night in Tacoma.
You know, your boy BC, I love the fine steak. I love great pro wrestling. Maybe not necessarily sports entertainment, but they set the stage nicely with the go home on Raw and SmackDown this week. And as we enter Sunday's show, look, what you want to do in a go home show is make people want to know what happens next. And this isn't necessarily the perfect pay-per-view. You labeled it yourself on our extended State of Combat Pro Wrestling episode this week, previewing all things wrestling, that this very much felt like a pay backlash card in the sense that it's just 2 weeks after another experiment in Saudi Arabia. But even though we got a lot of rematches this Sunday, even though it may not be the most, let's say, I don't know, exciting build in terms of the matchups we're seeing, when you go back to the little details, when you do the attention to those tiny details and you make me care, I generally want to see what happens next. So I'm going to enter Sunday with a little bit of optimism.
I think that's a completely fair stance to take. Optimistic is good because this match, this card, I should say, has the ability to deliver. There are matches on there that are high quality matchups where you say, hey, if they book this correctly, this could be a very good show. The problem is we haven't seen much of that recently from WWE.
Well, they got an opportunity to turn around what really has been tough to use the words historically or really go to that level. But obviously in the aftermath of WrestleMania this year, ratings declining on Raw and SmackDown, creativity declining, obviously going back to Saudi Arabia for another Super ShowDown really wasn't the best thing to rev up fans and get us excited. But they can pull out of that ditch right here this week. And when you look at this card as a whole, Adam, what's the match that should be on the poster? What's the storyline? What's the one thing that is most at stake, that is most cliffhanging you, the fan, as you head into the show?
That's actually the problem. There's not a poster match for me. There's not a main event. That's the biggest issue with this entire card, is that there are a bunch of co-main events and mid-level interesting matches, but there is not a singular match here where I say that is the clear main event of the show. It's the match I want to see the most, and I'm super curious to see what happens. In fact, this is like one of those shows where Roman Reigns would go in not as champion, but he'd be in the main event because he's Roman Reigns. And I guess I would probably say the Roman Reigns-Drew McIntyre match, despite that being such a disappointment at WrestleMania, I think that maybe has the opportunity to steal the show here, because even the 2 main men's title matches are just co-main events to me.
Well, look, if we end up with Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre in the main event, I think we have a problem here. I think we're going back into the well of negative WWE main roster tropes. And let me remind you, it's 2019. We're in the third boom period, if you will, of this industry. The things going on outside WWE, the things going on inside WWE when we're talking about NXT have been better than Raw and SmackDown. It's time to raise up. So I think if there's one storyline, if there's one thing, I want to see what happens next, even though it has been bungled and mishandled to this point, is Brock Lesnar's briefcase situation with the Money in the Bank. I think that connects directly, Adam, with the big mystery, the big payoff, which we are hopefully going to see in this Seth Rollins, Baron Corbin Universal Championship match this weekend, is who's going to be the special guest referee. Will it be Brock Lesnar? Will Brock Lesnar be cashing in? And ultimately against which champion? So we mentioned WWE sort of pulling the creative out of the ditch, putting the train back on the track, if you can stay cliche heavy with me here. But I'll say this. I care. about who Brock might cash in on and how he might show up on this card in Washington on Sunday, even though he's not scheduled to. And I think that's a credit this week on the go-home shows to implementing Paul Heyman strategically enough that we know this is in play. We know it should be in play. And I'm trying my best to forget the go-home show ahead of Saudi ShowDown when Brock Lesnar had a beaten down Seth Rollins in front of him and somehow chose not to cash in then. We do have a chance to kind of repair that and sort of close the show, not with Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre, but hopefully closing the show with Brock Lesnar, whether it's a successful cash-in, whether it's a foiled attempt, whatever it is. Brock arguably right now your most potent star. Let's use him on Sunday night.
I think he should be there. I mean, Tacoma's close enough to Canada, so I don't think it's too big of a pain for him to get there. But then again, we're kind of in this new reality of WWE where they're trying to save their ratings, and it's like, you're really going to use Brock Lesnar at Stomping Grounds in mid-June? You're not going to save that for Extreme Rules, which would make sense if you have that Money in the Bank briefcase, or SummerSlam, or another major event that matters. You're going to bring him in at Stomping Ground? You know, I don't really see that happening necessarily, BC, but we are going to get...
Here's the problem, though, Adam. If you stay with that mindset, and you're talking about SummerSlam or another big event, well, obviously, there's a big event Friday, October 4th, when WWE starts the new relationship with SmackDown, moving from Tuesday to Friday nights, prime time, Fox, national television. What about Brock cashing in on Kofi? Yes, we've all thought of it. It's an interesting scenario. But how many more times can you tease Brock? Can you have Brock attempt to cash in and fail because of a bungling Paul Heyman like we saw in Saudi Arabia or any other concoction? That's going to get old quick.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, we've kind of given you an overall preview of this Stomping Ground show, BC. Are you ready to get into this card?
Hit me up. I may give you give me 4 hot minutes and get out of here, but I'm going to be honest with you. Let's break this thing down. Let's do it.
Well, that's how it should be. And we're probably going to start on the kickoff show. We don't know yet with that Cruiserweight Championship. Tony Nese defending against Drew Gulak and Akira Tozawa. And BC, look, 205 Live is better than people give it credit for being. But to me right now, they are in a lull. And despite all three of these guys being talented, I cannot remember a situation where I've really been less excited for a Cruiserweight Championship match.
Yeah, they put the title on Tony Nese coming off of this Buddy Murphy era, which we all thought was going to send Buddy Murphy to the main roster. Then he got announced as a new SmackDown member, and the guy never appeared. Guys, wake up. Buddy Murphy is Kenny Omega Light. He's a WWE superstar waiting to happen. Let's get the guy on the screen. Separate to that, putting the belt on Tony Nese felt like an experiment. Felt like ultimately it was going to be transitional. I love me some Tony Nese. Fun worker. The abs gimmick is good. Doesn't seem to be a guy that can carry a show. Look, we know that Mike Kanellis and Maria just re-signed with WWE, and they've played a huge part storyline-wise on 205 Live lately. And by the way, that's a very well-booked show with Triple H at the helm. I'd like to see more of somebody in a star heel role like a Mike Bennett with the title than I would average worker guy. And I think ultimately for Tony Nese, even for Akira Tozawa, they're average worker guys. How I would book this, how I want to book this, is I want to see what we have with Drew Gulak. The times they've given him the ball in 205 Live and ran with it, he's done great. He made PowerPoint presentations a thing. He's done a cup of coffee on the main roster when the Cruiserweights used to be featured there. He was just on NXT wrestling Kushida. He can do a lot of things for you. No, he's not a flip artist, which is the calling card of 205 Live. But am I overselling, Adam, the character potential in Drew Gulak? Great mat wrestler, gritty, Philadelphia style and background, and I think he's much better on the microphone than people realize.
Oh, no, you're 100% right. In fact, Drew Gulak is the only one of these three that I would want to see in a main event match, a 205 Live main event match, and have the title. So I'm completely aligned with you. Drew Gulak is the one who needs to win this match, and if the reason it's a triple threat is so Akira Tozawa can take the pin, and then they can have Drew Gulak, Tony Nese at a future 205 Live show or at another pay-per-view, I'm totally fine with that. But it's really about time for him to get the title. We said this, Brian, a couple years ago about Cedric Alexander. We're like, this is the best guy on your roster that you're not using. And what did they do? They gave Cedric Alexander the title, and he had a year-long run with it. So it's time for them to do the exact same thing with Drew Gulak. All right, next up, just announced the New Day. We have Big E and Xavier Woods against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in a tag team match. No titles on the line, just a regular tag team match on a pay-per-view, and we really never get those anymore. It's very rare that something like this happens, but Big E just returned from injury. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn kind of came back right around that WrestleMania time, and you know what? I think they've built this suddenly and very quickly better than one would expect.
I'll give WWE this credit. And I liked Monday night, but I really liked Tuesday night. And again, I got to put quotations around really like. And we broke this down in our extended State of Combat podcast, Pro Wrestling This Week. I'm grading WWE on the curve, and the curve is that the creative has not made any sense and the dots have not connected. So when you finally kind of start to put things together, I'm going to pop for it. I'm going to overvalue it. This week, Tuesday night, I popped for it because things mattered. They set themselves up normally to sort of convolute, to steal a Silver King phrase, by mixing together on Tuesday night many different storylines involving different teams, different singles people heading into Sunday's show. Yet I thought they somehow pulled it off. They got me excited about what Kofi and Dolph are doing. They got me excited about how Seth Rollins through the wild card rule played into that. And they got me excited ultimately about the New Day and KO and Sami connection. I don't think there's a deep enough storyline here. I think they can put together a good match. But I kind of need a storyline reveal through the result of this match, Adam, to keep me interested on what this really is. How are you popping for this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm popping because of Big E. I mean, you saw it there on those highlights. He's awesome, right? And getting him the opportunity to be in a match that doesn't have to revolve around Kofi and the WWE Championship or even the tag team titles, it's great to see. But ultimately, we've seen Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn since their return to the main roster, from injuries, both of them, be losers consistently over and over again on TV, on pay-per-views. You know what it's time for? It's time for these guys to win a match. And New Day is completely capable of taking a loss. So I think this is a really good opportunity to continue that storyline with Kevin Owens. And if this Ziggler feud with Kofi is going to end, which I don't necessarily think it will at Stomping Grounds, then it does put Kevin Owens in a position to maybe be that challenger again for Kofi.
No, Adam, look, Kofi Kingston multiple times on our podcast has called me a wedge, trying to break the New Day apart. The wedge driver, excuse me. No, I just like good storylines. And the implosion of the New Day is a storyline I've wanted for a long time. And again, not because they're not great together, because you can implode and then get back together. But I think it's a wrinkle that would sell. I think Kofi's recent star turn with WWE Championship adds to that. We all know Big E is sort of this star in waiting. My end game, yes, is a triple threat match to main event a pay-per-view involving all three New Day members. So to appease my liking of that, my care, my optimism as a fan, could we be headed there? And I don't want you to spoil your prediction for what happens in the Kofi Dolph Ziggler match on this title feud here, but something Dolph Ziggler really put over entering their steel cage match on this card is, Kofi, you're nothing without those New Day members by your side. And obviously, finally, in the steel cage, I'm going to be able to prove that to you. Anything, any feels, any teases that this KO and Sami match and how it combines with the result of that Kofi and Dolph match could get me closer to an actual storyline within the New Day that wedges them apart.
I would love to indulge you in that. I would. But no. I mean, no, I don't see that happening. They've made it very clear that they're at peace in WWE with being a team, being grouped together. They don't want to feud against each other. They don't want to be split up. And you can make the argument that there's only so long that New Day can work. And it's already maybe exceeded expectations in terms of how long that team can be together. But I just don't see a scenario where they break them apart.
All right. Hey, a boy can dream. All right. Let's keep it going here. I like the heels to win as well, Adam. I think they should. Not so much at stake, but let's put a little more shine on them.
Sure. Well, more SmackDown action, more tag team action on the SmackDown side. We'll see how many more of these I can bumble today. Daniel Bryan and Rowan, the champions, SmackDown Live tag team champions, defending against Heavy Machinery. And I think they've done a decent job building this, Brian. But do you have really any expectation that the titles change hands here?
No, it shouldn't. But I think this is a good opportunity to further build Heavy Machinery, put them on a platform to shine with what they do well, which is comedy. And I thought Daniel Bryan sitting in on commentary on Tuesday night on SmackDown really echoed it perfectly. He continued his recent rant that tag team division isn't serious. It could never main event WrestleMania like he wants it to, because you have too many teams like Heavy Machinery who don't take training and finishing off their opponents serious. They're just comedy acts. His comparison to them, to the Bushwhackers, was fun and apropos, as was his hipster reference to the Sheep Herders, which of course was Luke and Butch's former tag team alias before joining WWE in the 80s. So I love everything surrounding that. You don't want to put the titles on Heavy Machinery, but to give them sort of a cup of coffee on the title level in an in-between pay-per-view, which Stomping Grounds actually is, it's perfect. It puts over Rowan and Bryan as a real tag team. And look, it's about Daniel Bryan right now. This heel run has been incredible, and the mic work of late is just genius. Please, we want it. We want in the rise of AEW and Jon Moxley crossing over from Dean Ambrose and going on podcasts and ripping the current state of WWE, where we want less scripted. I don't know if Daniel Bryan's completely scripted. It feels like not, but I need more people cutting promos like Daniel Bryan consistently does.
Absolutely. We've made the argument on State of Combat. By the way, you can subscribe on CBSSports.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you do find podcasts. We've made the argument that up until this point, Daniel Bryan might be having the best 2019 of any professional wrestler in the world right now. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on, BC. We have more matches to cover, though. The United States Championship is coming up between Samoa Joe, the champion, and Ricochet, who just won a fatal 5-way match on Raw to get that #1 contendership opportunity. I mean, I think this is going to be a fantastic match. I just really do wish there was some more build here, because it looked like we were heading towards Samoa Joe, Braun Strowman at one point, and then Samoa Joe, The Miz. And now neither of those is happening, and we have Ricochet in this match. He deserves to be there. He's over with the fans. But do you think he's going to win the title?
Well, I think you nailed up front the sort of misdirection, the convolution, the what the heck are we doing? Who's feuding with who? Who's zooming who? Take another look and tell me, boy, who's zooming who? Thank you. I think ultimately, though, if this is going to be a feud, in the ring, they have the potential for magic. The way that Ricochet's high-flying offsets Samoa Joe's physicality is incredible. So if you're actually going into a feud that can span multiple shows, you keep the title on Samoa Joe here. You have him cheat to win. You have a lot of things happen. And then you head to Extreme Rules. You have a match that involves weapons right there. And maybe then you put the title on Ricochet. I think they've presented Ricochet so well since they've called him up. They've made him look like a star from the beginning. If their goal is to put the U.S. Championship on him through this feud, I think it's a smart one. I think you gamble on what you really have there. I just don't think you do it on Sunday night. Even though I just said that, Adam, it would be disappointing. Knowing how Samoa Joe is, knowing how great he is, knowing how he's often the best heel in all of pro wrestling, let alone WWE, to see him constantly just win the title for a month and give it back to another babyface, maybe not the best use of him ultimately, but I'm not against giving Ricochet a chance to shine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Rey Mysterio injury is going to keep him out too long. So I think you keep the title on Samoa Joe and you build up to something at Extreme Rules or SummerSlam. We love Samoa Joe. He works without the title. We know this. But what have we been saying for the last year and a half? We want Samoa Joe to have a title. When he had that match against Brock Lesnar at Great Balls of Fire back in, I think, 2017, what did we say? If Samoa Joe won, that would have been believable. It would have been awesome, right? So let's get him back to that spot. Unless they have a plan to put Samoa Joe in the main event as Seth Rollins' next challenger for the Universal Championship, then he should retain this title. Ricochet can absorb a loss, and you can move forward from there on. BC.
You gotta feel for Samoa Joe, though. Hold on a second. You got to feel, you consider when he got called up to the main roster a couple years ago and then got left out of WrestleMania seemingly for no reason when he was initially Triple H's muscle in the suit. And since then, we've said, this guy's a main eventer. Put him in there. And the only real main event push he got was that very regrettable feud with Roman Reigns, in which it was known more for them getting booed out of the building there in Philadelphia that night than it was for good storytelling. Yes, I know he had that run with AJ, but even then, I don't feel like they capitalized fully on what it could have been. Give Samoa Joe his hour, right? Give him his close-up. Like, you gave him the tease, you give him a morsel, but why are we all knowing what he brings to the table and them just sort of using him as another guy?
Well, he's not a typical WWE Vince McMahon guy. He's big, but he's not, Lesnar. He's not Reigns. But let's not forget, he did have the thing with Reigns. He did have the thing with AJ. I just mentioned he fought Lesnar in main event of Great Balls of Fire, and he was in that fatal four-way that you loved, that you saw live at SummerSlam. So he has been featured, just that he hasn't won. We need this guy to win. So him losing to Ricochet here, for me, just really doesn't make much sense. Okay, BC, moving on. SmackDown Women's Championship. Bayley, who just won the title at Money in the Bank by beating Charlotte, who just beat Becky Lynch on that show, is now defending against Alexa Bliss from Raw. Doesn't make a lot of sense. We don't love, I know we've discussed it before, Alexa Bliss being from Raw, getting a SmackDown title opportunity when they have plenty of other women on SmackDown. But let's be honest. This has been a very well-built feud. We have Nikki Cross involved on Alexa's side, Alexa befriending her. And I made this comment on Twitter. Let's see if you agree with me or disagree. The Bayley Alexa Bliss moment from Monday night, or from Tuesday night Tuesday night, was the best women's segment we have seen on WWE TV, not involving Becky, Charlotte, or Ronda Rousey in the last 18 months. Agree or disagree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I really have to pull out my abacus and calendar and figure out, whether you're just being, whatever. I get what you're saying. It was great. It was really, really good. And I think overall, we got to come to terms with something here. Look, WWE's moving to Friday nights on SmackDown. The roster segregation, the brand split, it's over. They're not telling us it's over. They've implemented the stupid wild card rule. There's no real rules to the wild card rule. I think we all woke up and realized that on every Monday and Tuesday night, you're getting Seth Rollins, you're getting Shane McMahon, you're getting Daniel Bryan, you're getting Kofi Kingston, you're getting all of them. Yes, to quote you correctly, it has ruined the mid card to certain degrees, but it's the old way's over. So we can get over the idea of somebody on Raw fighting for the SmackDown. It's not a thing anymore. It's the wild, wild west. I wish they would just be a little bit more open in saying that. But with that said, this has been handled brilliantly. Alexa Bliss as a character hit an absolute home run on Tuesday night when you consider the goal of that segment entering into her title bout with Bayley, how she manipulated and used Nikki Cross again as a friend who she's just using to sort of distract and get in the way, and it allowed her to beat down Bayley. But the gold in that obviously was the back and forth between Bayley and Alexa Bliss, because ultimately they were saying some very real things. For Alexa Bliss to point back and say, look, Bayley, you're just jealous because you peaked in NXT and I've had the main roster run that you would have dreamed of, was in a lot of ways what we're all thinking. It was perfect. And to have Bayley come back and reference, hey, Alexa, you're using Nikki the same way you used Mickie James and Nia Jax in the past. Full circle, connecting the dots. Love it. Crossing the T's and dotting the I's. I think I got it that time, Adam. Love it. Don't know how good this match could be. But here's the thing. Besides my earpiece, which is giving me problems here, Adam, ultimately, we got a good opportunity for how Bayley's actually getting presented here. There's some edge. There's a little bit of some heel flash. I know the elephant in the room is Sasha Banks coming back? In what form? Will it be some surprise reveal? Will it be the night of SummerSlam? Will it be before that? Will it be Sunday night? We don't really know. We know Bayley's coming off of that friendship storyline there. Is Bayley setting up for a heel turn in your eyes? Because it's no longer the hugger, and they're sort of playing into that.
I don't see it so much as a heel turn as just an edge. Like these characters in WWE, these baby faces, they need to have an edge, especially when you have all of them. All four main titles going into the show are babyface champions. Bayley, Becky Lynch, Kofi Kingston, and Seth Rollins. So you see them giving Seth Rollins an edge. I think they're giving Bayley an edge. Let's not forget, I think it was Alexa Bliss that bludgeoned Bayley with a Singapore cane or kendo stick, whatever it was, 2 years ago, and just completely ruined all of the momentum that she had, made her look completely weak. So if this is an opportunity for Bayley to get back up on Alexa Bliss, a women's character who is completely over with the WWE universe, they love her, then this is an opportunity for them to actually push Bayley as the single star that she should be. There was nothing wrong with the tag team with Sasha Banks, but she is a talented female wrestler. She can speak on the mic, she can work in the ring, and I don't necessarily like that Bliss is in this match because there are women on SmackDown that Bayley could be facing. But if they do put Bayley over Bliss, and that is what I expect to happen, then she's getting the rub that she really needs that maybe they don't want to give her from Charlotte or Becky.
If Bayley goes over here and defends the title, I feel like we're getting closer to Sasha's return. I feel like that's connected.
That's possible, but I would think that Sasha would be a Raw superstar because apparently the plans, according to the insiders, prior to breaking them up, was that one would be on SmackDown, one would be on Raw. That's why they broke up the tag team. But yeah, they could put her on SmackDown
but in this
as a
modern day where brands don't matter. Yeah. And look, I asked you the question, are we setting up for a Bayley heel turn? I think you rightfully said no. So what are we setting up for? Hopefully a giant Sasha return at heel, which is her best presentation, go back to what made her great in NXT. Yep. This would be the perfect setup for to have her finally blow up the friendship with Bayley, have the female mega powers explode, and have heel Sasha win the title from Bayley. So if Bayley defeats Bliss on Sunday night, that's sort of telling me we're going in that direction. Maybe.
Well, this is the classic WWE storyline where someone returns who's a friend of a person who's outnumbered, and you think they're going to help them and even the sides being Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross and then Bayley and maybe Sasha Banks, but then ends up turning on them or helps them, and then after they retain the title, turns on them and starts a feud. So there's a very good chance that could happen. But for me, if you're going to have Sasha Banks return, it should be at a major show, not at Stomping Grounds in Tacoma. And I'm sorry, Tacoma and Seattle and Washington State. I don't mean to crap on you there. I'm just saying this is not a major pay-per-view. Sasha Banks has been out so long. Let's bring her back in a real way.
Oh, I'd pop on Sunday night. And real quick, I want your answer. Nikki Cross, I think, has been doing better lately. Originally, they were almost giving her Eugene level booking.
Yes.
In 2019, you really can't do that. Do you like who Nikki Cross is on the main roster, given that we know she's a badass in NXT?
I do, because what did I always say about her in NXT? She was too crazy, just a little bit too much. And what they're doing is they have her reserved. She's getting facials with Alexa Bliss. Her hair is straight. Well, you know what's eventually going to happen? She's going to snap. And when she snaps, it's going to develop the character that we all want to see from Nikki Cross. Brian, it seems weird to say they're booking the women's division well. This match makes sense. The storyline makes sense. It's great. I got to be honest, as excited as I am for this, I'm really not excited for our next match, the Raw Women's Championship between Becky Lynch and Lacey Evans. We have now seen this feud for 3 months. Every time Lacey Evans gets in the ring, it's not really exciting. Why are they still doing this? Are they actually going to put Lacey Evans over? What is happening here?
I'm torn, Adam, because you're right in a sense. It's like we just saw this. It's a little bit of overkill. And by the way, every time Becky and Lacey are in the ring together, like that somewhat short segment on Monday night, it's sort of like, well, what are you presenting to us that's new? And in reality, nothing. It's sort of the same thing. With that said, though, Adam, one of those things where, like, even bad pizza is really good pizza, right? Like there's no such thing as bad pizza. I don't think there's any such thing as bad putting together the stars that are Becky Lynch and Lacey Evans. And I think Lacey Evans continues to hit a home run on the main level in her first feud consistently. Every time she's on the screen, it feels like it matters. She knows her character well. She can work a physical style. I'm still in the pro Lacey Evans. Everything you do it for me as a fan. I'm loving it. So the ultimate real question here is, where are we going? Is this just to continue Becky with the championship, which would seem to make sense in terms of the things we might be building towards heading into SummerSlam? Or is it Lacey's time? If it's not Lacey's time, is it a negative to her character that she could go through this long of a feud with Becky and ultimately not come over the top? There's an interesting dilemma in here. But I think when all is said and done, Becky Lynch, the man, is going to exit with the belt, because it just seems to make a little bit more sense for business, even though I like Lacey a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like they're building it for Lacey to take the title here, but I don't know anyone that wants that. And it's not a heel or a face thing. It's just, we've seen her in the ring now on multiple occasions, and she's really not getting it done. In fact, there have been a couple unsafe situations that we've seen where you really question, did they bring her up too soon, or is it just, her lack of familiarity working with these women, because she never has before. She didn't come up in NXT with them. They're different generations, really. For me, it's look, you have something with Becky. The fans are still really responding to her. You already had her drop one of the titles. She dropped it to Charlotte. That was okay. If you're going to have her drop another one, it really should be to an Alexa Bliss, to a Sasha Banks, someone that's established. I don't want them to use Becky to put over Lacey, because you know what's going to happen? Then Becky's just kind of in this purgatory. And what kind of feud exactly is she going to have if it's not with the title right now? You need to work up to that. So I think you build a feud with Sasha Banks. Maybe, Becky wins this Monday on Raw. You have Sasha Banks come out, and you bring that feud into its fruition at SummerSlam. You have Sasha Banks take the title, and you breathe some new life into the women's division. I just don't think Lacey Evans is the life that I want breathed into the division. It's as simple as that.
So that's fair, and I think you nailed that out good, but I think I can almost devil advocate come back at you. It's clear, obviously, I'm a bigger fan of Lacey's, sort of ceiling and long-term potential than you, but I almost feel like everything you just said about Becky Lynch, you can say about Lacey. She's not going to win the title here. Where is she going? I don't look at her as a mid-card wrestler, even though she's a little bit more raw in the ring than she is on the mic. I think they've worked so hard to present her as a legitimate star that, Adam, where would you go from here if she's not going to win the belt?
I think good heels can be good heels with titles or not. And you can say the same about faces too. I guess Becky would still be a huge star without the title. But a heel can do something wrong to anyone. So you pick Natalya, you pick Naomi, anyone, she can insult them. She can interfere in their matches. She can knock them out with the women's right. There are storylines for Lacey Evans to get involved in. I don't know where they're going with this. And maybe what we're talking ourselves into here is Lacey Evans actually beating Becky and them continuing this feud. But I don't really want to see this for another 2 months. I just don't.
I hear you. A little tired, but guess what? Still tastes really good. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay, well, we do have 3 matches left on this card. And before we get to the 2 title matches, let's talk Roman Reigns against Drew McIntyre. Brian, I've given my opinion on these two in this match. Plenty. You know, I said leading up to WrestleMania, it was the perfect opportunity for them to have Roman Reigns lose at WrestleMania, coming off his real-life leukemia, having Drew McIntyre win, and writing this storyline of Reigns losing matches and trying to find himself and get back into his groove, making him a real babyface. They didn't do that. They had Reigns win, but they did just have him lose to Shane McMahon. Do you think there's a chance that WWE listens to the Silver King here, has Drew McIntyre win this match, and gives us the storyline that you and I really wanted coming out of WrestleMania? Or you just think this is another situation where they have built up Drew McIntyre to be a legitimate monster the last couple of weeks, and Roman Reigns just rolls over him again?
Yeah, to quote Vince McMahon, no chance, Silver King. That's what you got here. How could you do anything in terms of trust, in terms of anticipation for this storyline, knowing how they've booked Roman Reigns, that they gave him at WrestleMania sort of an unnecessary feel-good comeback, inspirational push when that had sort of already been the storyline. It was Kofi's night, not Roman's night. Yet they sort of gratuitously still pushed it like that. You're not going to put over Drew McIntyre then after you work so hard to build him up. Are you going to do it now that you've worked so hard again to build him up? History is telling you Roman's going over on Sunday, and it really disappoints me unless they're planning on surprising me here, because Drew McIntyre's so good and so ready. Why would you go back to the well with Drew versus Roman here unless you're going to do exactly what we said and put Drew over? I'm really confused. I'm really uneasy about where this is going. There's nothing really at stake outside of a grudge, but the grudge isn't really that deep to me. I like what they've done, of course, with Shane McMahon in this role, giving him his own lounge, having this elite party, giving me the feels that a Four Horsemen 2.0 might be coming here with the Revival and Elias and McIntyre. And I understand that's 5 people, but you get my point. If Roman ends with a victory on Sunday, Adam, it's like, once again, you've kind of puffed up our balloon just to pop it. What are you doing?
Yeah, it almost, look, we're going to have our official predictions on cbssports.com/WWE. We do them for every pay-per-view, and I'm going to predict Roman Reigns to win, because if we're actually going to count them, which we really don't, we don't keep track, but if we did, you want to be right, and being right, you would predict Roman Reigns to win. But if I'm anyone with a brain booking this match, I'm picking Drew McIntyre to win this match. That's how I'm booking it, because Roman can eat a loss to anyone. It doesn't hurt him. His brand is so strong. His character is so strong, and even though the brand split is kind of fading away, they are on different brands. So it's not like they have to fight again and Roman would have to get his win back. Or maybe if they do that, it's at Extreme Rules in a stipulation match and there's an excuse for it. But you got to start putting other people other than Roman Reigns over. And if you're going to do that, you have to allow Roman Reigns to lose to people other than Brock Lesnar. There is no reason that Roman Reigns should win this match. Drew McIntyre has the advantage on him in size and strength. He has the backing of Shane McMahon and the rest of this alliance, whatever you want to call it. And Roman just went over as the face on Raw. He got the beatdown of these guys, right? So if that is how you're going to end Raw, that tells me the opposite should happen on the pay-per-view. And the opposite of what did happen on Raw and what normally happens on WWE pay-per-views is putting the heel over clean. And that means Drew McIntyre winning this match, not Roman Reigns.
My real wish is that it's not long. We don't need a long match here. Don't slow down the show. And you hate to ask for this or even predict it on a pay-per-view, but I almost kind of need a smudge finish, right? Unless you're going to go down the road of Drew McIntyre really is the Scottish psychopath, if you will, and you're pushing him toward a title, then just smudge me and let's get to the next step.
Yeah, I don't mind Shane getting involved. Just, I would like Drew to come out looking like the beast he is, one way or another. All right, we have the 2 men's title matches here. BC, WWE Championship match between Kofi Kingston, the champion, and Dolph Ziggler inside a steel cage, which would probably mean a little more to me if they didn't just have a steel cage match, not these two, but Shane McMahon and The Miz on the last pay-per-view. So 2 pay-per-views in a row with a steel cage match. Regardless of that, we saw what happened at Super ShowDown, which was Kofi winning with the help of New Day a little bit, Xavier Woods more specifically. Are you excited about this match? Does it have the opportunity to steal the show like I think it does?
Maybe. I mean, certainly from a working sense, they do. You don't always have a lot of confidence that WWE would allow two good workers to go out there and work, right? Like we saw with that Rollins and Ziggler feud. We expected magic. We didn't get it. I know AJ Styles and Seth Rollins are just coming off giving us what we want. I don't expect to get what we want here. Here's what's happening overall. They're telling the story correctly. I think the problem is it's not a great story right now, but there are things that I like. They're checking off the boxes. The story's making sense. They're connecting things. Dolph really put over to open SmackDown on Tuesday that Kofi, you're nothing without your teammates. Then he went out there. We saw Kevin and Sami run out, allow everyone to get thrown out from ringside. And what did Dolph Ziggler do? He took out and destroyed Xavier Woods with a mean scowl on his face as a way to perfectly send you on your go home and get you prepared, because that's exactly what he plans to do to Kofi. So storytelling-wise, they're doing the right thing. I don't know if this will be a classic. I expect Kofi to defend ultimately, but I sort of like how they're preparing this story to get us interested.
My entire expectation is for Kofi Kingston to defend the title. I mean, we thought he was going to lose it a month after WrestleMania. He still has it today. That's great. But look, again, if I'm booking this, I'm booking Dolph Ziggler to win the WWE Championship, because the story is better told with Kofi in chase. And if you want to legitimize Kofi Kingston as WWE Champion, having him win it once for 4 months, that's okay. Having him win it twice for 2 4-month reigns says, yes, we are serious, not just about Kofi Kingston, but about this representation, this diversity in WWE that we've talked so much about. The concern coming out of WrestleMania was Kofi dropping the title, never really getting a rematch, and that's it. And it was a good story for April. I think it's working that Kofi Kingston has made himself into a legitimate main eventer in WWE, and it's been proven by the crowd reaction, the t-shirt sales, and the fact that WWE has already kept the title on him this long. But if you're going to have a face in your main event, oftentimes they work better in chase, like I just said. And I would be really interested to see Dolph Ziggler win the title in this match.
Yeah, so would all of us, because Dolph Ziggler's a guy that we love, and that for years we've been saying, what are you doing with him? Nothing. But you're trying to live in a dream world of optimism if you believe they're putting the strap around him here. The Kofi thing has worked really well. And I think if you're WWE, you look at that and go, why are we going to change it? It's working. People love it. People love this guy. And I'll give Kofi credit. I'm not the biggest fan of the idea as Kofi as your WWE champion. That's been established. He's starting to win me over. He's getting better on the microphone. He's doing some things. My biggest problem, as I just mentioned, is they're telling a story that I like, but I don't think it's going to end how they're sort of setting it up to, which is, Kofi, you're not the same without your teammates there. They can't be there when we're in the cage. So Dolph will finally one-up him. I don't know how you're going to have any confidence that the title would go to Dolph, though, given their booking history, and that they would be setting up Kofi for a second big win and crowd explosion. I just don't think they think that way.
Well, I think if you look at the people that are on SmackDown right now, there's not a large number of people in the main event that are actually getting pushed. Like, you have Reigns that's in this feud with Shane McMahon and all of them, and unless you're going to push him against a heel, Ziggler or Kevin Owens, who else is there? Daniel Bryan is now in a tag team situation. So they need heels. And right now, I mentioned earlier in this show, all of the 4 main champions are faces. 5 out of 6 if you include Finn Balor, who's not even on this show. The only one that's a heel and a singles champion in main roster WWE is Samoa Joe. So that tells me you need some heels to take titles. So unless you think Brock Lesnar or Baron Corbin's going to win the title in what I expect the main event of the show to be, which we'll talk about momentarily, you have to make some changes here. And I think one of those changes that they could actually legitimately make, that would make fans excited, would be Dolph Ziggler taking this title.
Yeah, I wish. You're speaking my language. I just think it's too good to be true.
Look, I'm trying. If we agree on everything, the show's no fun. So I'm going to go with Ziggler on that one, BC. But our last match, the Universal Championship, we have the champion, Seth Rollins, who beat the Beast, Brock Lesnar, at WrestleMania for the title, going up against Baron Corbin. There is going to be a special guest referee in this match. And as you and I intimated earlier in this show, we're kind of expecting it to be Brock Lesnar. So do you see any other special guest referee besides Lesnar, BC? And what do you ultimately think is going to happen in this match?
Of course, they're setting it up to be Lesnar here. And if they do, by the way, I think that's great. I think the idea of the referee being able to cash in at any point, what do we do with that? It's very interesting. I love that idea. You said, could it be anybody else? The only other person I think it could be is Paul Heyman, which would be interesting. You'd be ultimately telling the same story, but you'd be allowing Brock to either sit ringside or be watching from a distance and run in and cash in at any point. And then, by the way, you've got his advocate enrolled as the referee. So that could get very interesting. Here's how I see this playing out. Smart move here by WWE, by the way. Okay. I know you've talked up Baron Corbin being better than we think, having a bad rap. He's doing like, softly. I'll agree with you. I think it's Baron Corbin overkill, but softly, yes, he's doing well. He's fine. But I'm never going to get excited about a Seth Rollins Baron Corbin title feud. So the idea of making Lesnar a giant part of this, to me, it's serving my fandom. I care. I want to know, is he going to cash in when? So I'm set on that. What I don't love, and I know a lot of people do love it. People hit me up on the timeline at B Campbell CBS. They love this. Seth is so angry. He wants revenge against Baron and Brock. So he's just going to take a steel chair to anyone and everyone who even hints that they may be in that guest referee slot. Shouldn't WWE management be stepping in here? Every time we go to enlist a referee, you beat the guy down? I'm not going to get into the whole, well, isn't Seth a face? Why is he acting as a heel? Because I get you could say, well, look, they've done him wrong. Yes. I think it's a little bit of a reach, though. It's a little bit gratuitous. It's a little bit of corny, and it's a little bit of pandering to the crowd to just have Seth keep showing up and hitting everybody with the chair. That aside, you asked me who's going to win. Here's how I'd like this to go. I'd like Baron Corbin with the help of whoever the referee is to defeat Seth Rollins and win the championship, and then Brock to cash in afterwards and destroy him. I think that's how you send the crowd home. I don't want to use the word happy because
they would not be happy, Brian.
There are a lot of people that are overkilled by Brock Lesnar, but I think that's a dramatic enough reveal, even if you've telegraphed it, that you exit Sunday with big business. You get us next week on the State of Combat podcast to react to that. You get us entering Monday night to see what happens next. Maybe that goes back to Vince McMahon. He always puts Brock Lesnar over. Yes, it does. But I kind of like what that statement says, and I like it better than Brock spending all summer bungling that briefcase.
I don't know. Sometimes a swerve for the sake of a swerve doesn't really pay the bills. It doesn't get us going. And I think putting the title on Brock Lesnar after such a short time without the title, let's not forget, Roman won the title, right? Then, unfortunately, real life got diagnosed with leukemia, a recurrence of it. Had to give up the title. They had an opportunity to put over Braun Strowman. And what did they do? They gave the title back to Brock Lesnar. And it's been the better part of 2 years that this guy has held the Universal title hostage. And I don't like using that turn of phrase necessarily, except in this case it's true, because every time Brock Lesnar has the title, it affects the rest of the roster down the card. It means there's another wrestler who's not getting a main event push, which means there's another wrestler who's not getting a mid-card push. It makes that mid-card title mean more, I guess, because it's on TV more. But now it's not the Intercontinental title on Raw, it's the U.S. title, and we all know the U.S. title is number 4 out of all those singles men's titles on Raw and SmackDown. So, look, I didn't like Lesnar winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. We've already explained those reasons. But my biggest concern was he wouldn't be in chase, that he would cash it in at Blood Money in the Sand 3, win the title, and that would be it. Or that we just wouldn't see him for a few months, and then he'd come back with the briefcase. That was my chief criticism. Well, you know what? They're playing the briefcase angle nearly every week, either with Paul Heyman or with both of them. So contrary to my belief, he actually has been a good Money in the Bank winner thus far. And the whole point of the Money in the Bank briefcase is to have a storyline that takes you multiple months through the year that makes you wonder, hey, when is the title going to change hands? When is it going to get cashed in? I don't want to see that happen now. I want that to play out. And I definitely don't want, despite me thinking he's underrated and getting too much hate from WWE fans, I do not want to see Baron Corbin with the Universal Championship.
Even for 1 minute? Even for before Brock cashes in on it?
Yes, if it's in June, 2 months after WrestleMania, yes, too soon.
All right, here's what I'm going to say here. I think there's 2 things WWE has done that has sort of painted themselves in the corner that make the overall storytelling questionable here. 1, in hindsight, I do not love that Seth Rollins defeated Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania in the opening match fairly easily. I think it kind of hurt the overall storytelling to have it happen that way, where in just a couple minute typical Brock Lesnar slugfest heavyweight bout, somehow Rollins comes on top with 3 stomps to win it. And I certainly don't love the bungling, like I mentioned on the Go Home show ahead of the Super ShowDown, where Brock had the chance to cash in, and somehow you're going to tell me that he would have preferred to just haunt Seth and make his life difficult, whatever. Here's how you put that behind you. Here's how you please the people like you who, look, rightfully say, I've had enough of Brock Lesnar as champion. I've had enough of this part-time guy taking the title and running away with it. Who's going to win this match on Sunday, Adam, is going to tease their hand, or at least should, regarding what their plans are for SummerSlam. It's your summer WrestleMania. It's your Smark fan WrestleMania, okay? And what do you want to do in the main event of SummerSlam, your biggest event? And this time strategic because it's leading into the season of SmackDown moving to Friday night. So it's a big deal. How about this to please everybody? Okay, please you, please me. A triple threat feud for the Universal Championship, which you've showed your hand, WWE. That's the title you care about the most. With Brock Lesnar, who cashed in and is laughing and has the briefcase and the jukebox over his shoulder like Radio Raheem, against Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. You've done really well to present Seth Rollins as a main eventer. Roman, look, they're going to put him over Drew on Sunday. We know it. And by the way, if they do, there's no other place for Roman Reigns but the main event title feud. So unless we're doing face-on-face with him against Kofi Kingston, and we're not, it's time. And it pleases all boxes because Vince gets Brock in the main event with the championship. I get the idea of Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins actually feuding against each other, and you tell a fun story to get there because technically Roman and Seth are still teammates, ex-Shield members, fellow baby faces, competitive rivalry, but we respect each other. And ultimately, what do you want? You want Seth and Roman main eventing WrestleMania next year. You want my earpiece to stay in my ear, and you want the two of them doing it without Brock Lesnar for the big title. You want the mega powers exploding in my pants, Adam. To do that, you use Brock Lesnar to do that. You go back and tell the story of WrestleMania 31. You have it play out at SummerSlam. Everybody cashes in checks. BC gets fired up. Would that please you, Adam?
It would please me. That's a storyline I would absolutely love, BC. But I don't know. I just happen to think that the concentration of the briefcase on Seth Rollins and on the Universal Championship is the swerve. I think that's the swerve. I think if we don't see Ziggler beat Kofi Kingston, or even if we do, even if we see that on Sunday, I think Brock Lesnar ultimately cashes in on the WWE Championship, whether it's on that October 4th debut of SmackDown on Fox, or whether it's immediately after that, or they start a storyline there. That's ultimately where I think all this is going. Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, Fox, SmackDown, WWE title, whatever you want to call it, at WrestleMania next year, or at SummerSlam, or at the Royal Rumble. They're going to go back to that well. They need Reigns to beat Lesnar clean without Braun Strowman standing by ringside. That is how you finish all this off. Give Lesnar the extended break that he needs and that we as fans need from him. I just happen to think this concentration on Rollins is a swerve.
Then let me ask you this. Can we get to what I said, which is a triple threat match just to main event SummerSlam for that big belt with Reigns, Rollins, and Lesnar, three giant stars, without having Lesnar cash in on Sunday and still allow Lesnar to lose that match at SummerSlam and then come back on October 4th and cash in against Ziggler or Kingston?
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know that WWE is going to give him another title opportunity without it being the briefcase, because you're not running that storyline of Stephanie and Vince and kind of giving him the preferential treatment. The fact that he got in that match was the preferential treatment. So I think that would almost be a step too far, I suppose. And plus, I really don't need that triple threat match. I would just prefer one-on-one matches. And if you want Lesnar and Rollins, and if you want Lesnar to be champion again, have him be the champion going into SummerSlam, have Rollins contend, and win the title back from him. I'm getting sick of the repetitiveness. I need something new, and ultimately that's my hope for Stomping Grounds, Brian, is that something comes out of this pay-per-view that says to me, okay, Silver King, you've been disappointed with our product for the last 2 months. Well, we have 2 months going into SummerSlam. We're about to juice up again.
Yeah, I'd like to juice up right now. I think you have to be aware and understanding of where pro wrestling is right now in 2019, the competition around you, whether you deem them as real competition or not. But people are critically not happy with your product. Let's spice things up. Let's do things a little bit differently. Let's give reason for people to still believe that WWE is the best in the world at what they do, and that things going on in NXT aren't light years above what we're seeing on Monday and Tuesday nights. Let's hope it happens Sunday night in the state of Washington.